Hello, everyone. My name is Blair Meriden, and I'm the CrowdStrike Marketing Campaign Manager here at TD SYNNEX Public Sector. Welcome to the second product training in our CrowdStrike mini-series. And if you haven't registered for the other training sessions, please be sure to do so. We have a lot in store for you through September 2024, from the Falcon Identity Module, Cloud Security, to Falcon Insight XDR, to name a few. But for today's training session, we'll be talking about the Falcon Identity Protection Module. And as always, this training is brought to you by TD SYNNEX Public Sector, an authorized CrowdStrike distributor and the premier government solutions aggregator, solving IT challenges for the federal, state, local, and health markets. But before we get started, let's go over a few housekeeping items. Your lines are muted for the duration of the training session. However, if you have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to drop any questions in the Q&A or chat field. This session will be recorded and can be accessed through the same location where you registered. So if you missed a previous session, just go to the session listing and you can watch the recording sessions from there. Also, be on the lookout for a quick survey before we conclude. We would really appreciate your feedback so we can make any adjustments for future training sessions. And if you have any technical questions, please message Felicia directly in the chat. And here's a brief introduction of today's subject matter expert from CrowdStrike, Peter Fabianski. Peter is a solutions architect at CrowdStrike specializing in the public sector. With over 5 years of hands-on experience, Peter is a mastermind in networking engineering, system administration, and IT solutions. And if you haven't sat in on one of Peter's webinars, you're in for a treat today. Peter is a wealth of knowledge and inspiration in endpoint security, identity security, and threat intelligence spaces. So without further ado, take it away, Peter.
Awesome. Thanks, Blair. Hey, everyone. Hope you tuned in and looking to learn some stuff around identity protection and, kind of how big, it's become a, pretty relevant topic. So let me go ahead and share out my screen here and we can definitely kind of dive in. Blair, can you just confirm that you can see my screen before I go through here? All right, I'm going to assume everyone can see my screen. Awesome. So, as Blair mentioned, I'm a solutions architect over here at CrowdStrike, covering the public sector for our channel partners. And one of the things that we do is we work with DLT and put on these different webinar mini series to kind of help get the information out to our partners and our end users. And today we're really focusing around identities. And the real reason why we're focused around identities is if you haven't heard or haven't really been in tune on different flavors of threat intelligence, whether you're looking at us, whether you're looking at some other data feed, whether you're looking at dark reading, etc. All these different breaches that have been happening over the past 12 to 18 months have had reoccurring themes. Initial access, and initial access has typically been starting with valid credentials. And here at CrowdStrike, we're really helping our organizations hit on stopping data breaches, and it's really been our mission that we've been on, ever since we've been in business. So, as I mentioned before, this has been an issue with different solutions are really missing these identity-based attacks. We know it's a problem, we know it's an issue, and we need to be able to help our customers mitigate it. Because if threat adversaries and attackers are just walking through the front door and they're just opening up the doormat and they're grabbing the spare key and unlocking the door and walking right in, how else are you going to stop that attack? You may have the best protections in the world, but if it looks like legitimate access, it's very difficult to be able to go ahead and kind of mitigate that. And some of the other stats here is 25% of all attacks start from unmanaged hosts like contractor laptops. Again, you can do your best to be able to control what's getting onto your corporate network, but if you have recurring contractors coming into buildings, doing various contractor work, and they take it out, they go to a different site, and they're getting owned and have something else compromise their laptop, and they come back. That's a very valid way that they can go ahead and be able to kind of enter your network in one way, shape, or another. Cloud intrusions, again, we're seeing a huge uptick in cloud attack and kind of living off the land techniques. If you're not familiar with that terminology, living off the land is really focused on taking, a lot of this information and, being able to leverage what's in your existing environment. So if a threat adversary can go ahead and legitimately gain access, they're not always going to just start throwing, crypto walls and, C2, commands out there to be able to, kind of, capture this organization's network and try and ransom it back to them. Maybe they'll just sit there silently for months and just see what's on the network, see what's going on, and then kind of decide what angle they want to go. So, cloud, environments have definitely been an easy place for threat adversaries to kind of, laterally move to be able to kind of move off the land and not only, propagate and kind of look, but in a lot of cases, they'll spin up their own infrastructure on their victim's dime to be able to go ahead and actually make their attack more successful. And again, we have seen a massive uptick in Kerber roasting attacks. So if you're not familiar with Kerber roasting, this is a very old but very valid attack that has been, a huge proponent in Microsoft Active Directory. So, this is still something that's being legitimately used along the lines of, kind of pass the hash or golden SAML. Again, other attack types, that are synonymous with Active Directory. And they should have been fixed a long time ago, but they are still very valid ways for users to get in here. So that's just kind of the background that you're really kind of focusing on. Now, if you haven't guessed, Active Directory is a huge attack surface. So, over the past 20 years, AD is still relied upon by, I'd say, probably 90% of the organizations out there. We're definitely seeing adaptations and adoptions of Entra ID, Okta, and other cloud-based providers. But these, identity-related issues are still, not unique necessarily to Active Directory as people are moving off of, on the hygiene side. According to some of the data that we're collecting, organizations that experience an Active Directory attack in the last couple of years, 50% of them, 40% of those attacks actually are successful because these users are just exploiting weak hygiene. The issue with this, from a story perspective is, and I know this particular breach is a little dated, but if you remember back to thinking of Colonial Pipeline was really focused around identity-based attacks and leveraging, I think it was golden SAML in that case, but they leveraged a very old service account that was very stale and hasn't been used to log in over a year. And that should have been right away. Like, okay, well, how do I know one of those don't exist in my customers' environments today? Well, it's a very difficult thing to pick up on, or overprivileged accounts as well. So this is really where Active Directory is offering a path of that least resistance for these threat actors to go and exploit and get that initial landing spot and be able to start laterally moving. Speaking of lateral movement, threat actors aren't always starting from initial access. This is your kind of classic MITRE attack kill chain, where the adversary would start from initial access. They'd work their way down through discovery, privilege escalation until they can actually get a hold of credentials to then start to laterally move between valuable assets. Again, this would start with some type of spear phishing attack via, email, maybe it's smishing, via text message, maybe it's social engineering via phone call. And this is, the very traditional way of how these very, crafty adversary groups will go ahead and get that initial access. But we now know with adversaries who are leveraging identities, they can pretty much just skip all these initial steps and go right down to, lateral movement. So again, with valid credentials, it's hard to tell an adversary apart, from a legitimate user. It's like, okay, what happens if this user is logging in now with a kind of edge case admin accounts to go fix, specific things, or maybe it's an adversary logging in being like, oh, let me go start remoting over to, your domain controller or your email server or whatever it may be. So this is where this living off the land technique can get, really tricky because these adversaries can pretty much move laterally undetected. And this can include moving across endpoints, identities, hitting these different hybrid identity environments. So it could be either traditional on-prem Active Directory or, as I mentioned before, identity cloud providers like Entra ID and Okta. So this is really To kind of give you an analogy, this is like a car thief that doesn't have to break into the car. They already have the key and they can just walk in, turn the key on, and drive away. It's like the car doesn't know that the illegitimate owner is using the keys. So this is kind of the issue that we're trying to tackle here. So if you want to actually go ahead and actually fracture this kill chain, you're going to have the capability to actually detect and prevent these identity specific threats. And that's really where a lot of these identity threat protection will come into play. But before we get to that, this is actually a simplified version of all these attacks that actually identify various identity-based attacks. So you can see initial access, you have 50% of these credentials from the dark web, and then 20%, another 50% is phishing vulnerabilities and kind of others. From here you can see this 80% is lateral movement. Again, unless it's some crazy fringe case where you're having some borderline level of espionage taking place, you typically are seeing this 80% is involving RDP, SSH, other type of remote management software, maybe it be TeamViewer, ConnectWise, something to that degree. AnyDesk is another popular one. This is where we can go ahead and see those actors using those stolen credentials to move around in your environment undetected. And this can be a really difficult phase to detect because these actors are tending to move fast. I forget the exact number, but from our last global threat review, I want to say it was like under 2 minutes that threat actors can laterally move and go from lateral movements down to impact, whether it be data exfiltration or ransomware execution. So again, if you're looking at this, the kind of net is identity is an issue. It's a problem we have to solve. So let's get into kind of how we help our customers solve that. And that's really where we can definitely talk about this kind of breakdown with CrowdStrike. We're really kind of giving you a three-pronged approach to be able to help you protect your endpoints and your workloads. On the server, on the workstation side, we can help you protect your data, and then we can also help you protect your identities. So we're also adversary focused. You haven't heard me say that enough. Again, a quick aside, before we ever had an actual agent, before we ever had an actual product that we were selling, we were spending all this time looking at the bad guys, understanding what they were doing, the tactics, techniques, and procedures, putting together all this threat intelligence so we could share it with our customers, so they could go ahead and stay one step ahead of the adversary and stop the breach. And this has really transformed into bringing together different product cycles like endpoint and identity telemetry into a unified platform, the singular sensor, to correlate all this with that threat intelligence data and latest adversary tradecraft. So this is kind of that new age unified approach that is going to provide you faster detections with full attack visibility, but it'll also allow you to automate these based responses and eliminate a lot of manual correlation of threats. Because again, if we think back, that previous slide said average e-crime takes 62 minutes to get in and out. Global threat report that CrowdStrike put out, our fastest e-criminal actor was able to do it in, I think, 2 minutes and 32 seconds. So we do not have time to manually, correlate all these threats together. So we want to be able to obviously stop the breach, but we want to go ahead and be able to also improve SOC efficiency and security outcomes while reducing costs. So that's kind of the net of it all. And this is where Falcon, identity protection comes into play. This is where we have the ability to give you kind of that complete visibility into your Active Directory, being able to baseline user behavior and anomalies. We can give you real-time protection with different policy-based procedures and automatic blocking and protection against identity-based attacks like that golden SAML patch that has golden ticket attacks. And we can also do conditional access and risk-based response. Again, from a public sector perspective, there's so many legacy applications out there that your customers may be leveraging. And it's like, okay, like how do you plug in Okta or Ping or Duo or any other MFA provider into it if that legacy application doesn't have some type of OIDC connector or some other type of way to be able to have that second or multi-factor authentication? It's like, okay, well, it doesn't. How do we achieve that? Well, this is a great way. We can actually extend Okta and other MFA providers onto these legacy-based applications or GOTS tools or whatever your customers may be leveraging to go ahead and actually fulfill that need for multi-factor authentication and be able to kind of further beef up this from a user behavior access. Now, if we kind of take a look at these one by one, you can go ahead and see comprehensive visibility across Active Directory as cloud providers like Entra ID or Okta. This is going to gather all of the data and from your identities and your configuration data. So like think of like human and service accounts on-premise and cloud, and regular and privileged users. So if you think and look at your customers, if they've been leveraging an Active Directory, chances are they have a slew of accounts that have been created, deleted, permissions changed, AD roles been adjusted. And the issue with this is Active Directory from like a forests and nets perspective is not an easy thing to be able to manage, especially if you have multiple Active Directories that have been merged from mergers or acquisitions, people leaving, from a management perspective, and it just becomes very messy and complex very quickly. So what this does is we can go ahead and take our singular Falcon Center, install it onto the domain controller, and actually pick up on the actual NTLM traffic, the Active Directory traffic, and be able to go ahead and actually see what is going on, for that risk-based, actions that we can take, but also to be able to give visibility as well. So this is where we can go ahead and start by baselining all of your user accounts and also look at that abnormal user behavior, because now that we're sitting in line on all of these various Active Directory attacks and all of these Active Directory authentications, we can go ahead and be able to see anomalous behavior as it happens in real time. This is where the real-time protection comes into place. This is where we can actually block the authentication at the Active Directory level, so adversaries and other illegitimate actions can't proceed in the case where they may be coming from an unmanaged endpoint. That's such an easy rule that comes out of the box, with identity protection. So you can go ahead and see there's a number of different triggers that you can actually set up in the platform, like around triggers, access, or action. You have these different breakdowns and these different dropdowns to actually set your rule conditions. So in this case, this one's really focused around authentication. Exclude any users that you are using regular user sourced endpoints. So, if CrowdStrike's installed and if they're leveraging Kerberos or NTLM, let's go ahead and make sure that, we're, including them in this scope. And let's make sure that the user type is human. So we'd exclude any type of like service accounts in this example. So if someone was coming from a contractor laptop where you didn't see CrowdStrike installed, we'd go ahead and just do a quick identity verification. Hey, is this actually you? Go ahead and punch in your 6-digit code off of Okta Verify, or go click that green checkbox, off of whatever MFA connector you're leveraging. So this is a very easy, low friction thing that you can go ahead and put in place that can stop, the most complex attacks because you were able to just go ahead and have this level of protection kind of in life. And, this is kind of in tandem going into what I was talking before, but this is where you can have that risk-based response built out as well. So whether it be, an agent not installed, or maybe this is actually risky behavior. So in this case, identity protection is continuously monitoring, as I mentioned before, and we can look at this context and this behavior monitoring based on identity and endpoint telemetry to understand the user's riskiness and actually put together a risk score that dynamically changes. So if we see a risky user who's maybe a risk level of high, seeing that they're trying to RDP in off of a managed assets, but they're coming from an IP address that we've never seen before, maybe we'll go ahead and just push out an MFA and say, hey, by the way, go ahead and just tell me that you are who you say you are. And again, this is another great way to be able to legitimize potential erroneous actions or behavior. The other thing here is my personal favorite, leaked credentials. Again, we were talking about access brokers before and how 80-something% of attacks start with some type of leaked credential. Well, where are you going ahead and scanning the dark web and scanning and looking at all this data that we have from the threat graph in our data side of the house? Let's go ahead and use that and leverage any leaked credentials that we can pick up on and be able to check to see if they have a potentially compromised account. And if we see that they do, we're just going to go ahead and stop them from logging in until they change that password. And with some additional response features, we'll be able to add that into Active Directory, Entra ID, and Okta as well very soon. Well, I misspoke. We can do that in Active Directory today. We'll add that into some of the cloud providers in the future. And this is really where Unify is getting misused by a lot of vendors. I always like to kind of stop and explain what CrowdStrike means when we say Unify. So we understand that it's hard to actually manage multiple agents, and it adds a lot of complexity and management overhead. Again, a lot of endpoints and a lot of sensors don't like to play nice with each other. So this is where CrowdStrike has the single Falcon agent. We can go ahead and be able to protect your endpoints, and we are able to protect your identity as well. So if you have a customer that's already an existing CrowdStrike customer, they literally don't have to go and deploy anything new. They already have their sensors in place. You just need to enable the identity module, and the same sensor that's already deployed in your Active Directory DC starts detection and protection from identity-based attacks. It's literally that simple. This is where we can go ahead and also focus around the fact that we're the only adversary-focused platform that is bringing together endpoint identity telemetry into a unified platform. So you have that single pane of glass to be able to see this information and correlate it with threat intel and adversarial tradecraft from our CAO, our counter adversary operations, or our threat intelligence kind of side of the house. So this is where, even before we start talking about anything like next-gen SIEM or XDR, you just simply have all this data in one spot where you can go ahead and cut, slice, and dice it and have it available at your fingertips to show you kind of a cumulative overview and compare different things, especially for those kind of more complex attacks. Now, this unified approach helps by overlaying it with MITRE TTPs. So if you're CrowdStrike is obviously one of the market leaders in endpoint detection and response, and you're covered against execution, CNC, exfiltration, etc. Now with this unified identity data protection approach, you can get complete protection against adversary tactics that leverage valid accounts like initial access, lateral movement, privilege escalation, etc. So you can go and get this super complete coverage of adversarial tradecraft, spanning across all TTPs, between endpoint and identity in a single solution. So this is where we can go ahead and really, combine all these different items, where the green dots is where you're getting coverage from identity, and the white dots are where you're getting coverage from endpoint. So you're getting this kind of, full coverage when you're looking at it from a lens of MITRE attack in that case. And of course, just like our main, EDR platform with Falcon Complete, we also have Falcon Identity Threat Protection Complete. So again, this is where our Falcon Complete team works with Falcon Overwatch, which if you're not familiar with Falcon Overwatch, that's our team that can go ahead and actually actively and proactively threat hunt, kind of 24/7, and take this, 99.9 to 100%, percentile data with actual hands-on keyword activity from adversary groups and string it together into low-level telemetry to be able to identify some of these very tricky adversarial groups. That's paired with our managed detection response that you're getting from Falcon Complete. So if you are seeing this low-level telemetry and we see that an actor is trying to leverage valid credentials and they start to laterally move and they're trying to take some type of impact, this is where Falcon Complete will work with Overwatch with that data that they get and just simply turn off that accounts. They can go ahead and get in there with real-time response, surgically remediate any persistence actions that they've taken to be able to go ahead and actually kind of clean up this overarching attack and hang an after actions report. This now expands over to the identity side of the house. So now our complete team, if you're subscribed to both, can actually leverage identity and endpoint data to be able to further augment staff that you already have in place, be able to do that surgical response, as I mentioned, to go ahead and remove any identity-based threats or actions that have been already taken. And we also have a breach prevention warranty around that as well, which we've never paid out ever. And again, If you haven't seen, my previous slides, I always talk about speed. This is really, where we want to go ahead and make sure that we are, staying ahead of the adversaries. Industry average, for detection and response and remediation is 4 to 5 hours. We're seeing e-crime breakout time. This says 79 minutes because I haven't updated that number. It's like now 62. So with identity threat prevention, we want to go ahead and actually make sure that we're actually staying ahead. Again, some differentiators. Agent sprawl maintenance, IT and infrastructure guys never want to hear another agent that has to get deployed. They usually, fight it kicking and screaming. So you don't have to worry about that. Threat intel and security guys, typically don't want another platform that they have to live out of. They don't want another, overlapping alerts. So this is where that single unified platform is going to go ahead and help you there. Attack path again. You don't need multiple consoles with us to be able to go ahead and get that single detection interface. We can go ahead and have a lot of these automated responses with MFA and again leveraging Falcon SOAR or another SOAR provider through APIs. If you want to go ahead and take that extra step with automation, you can go ahead and have that. And again, we have that managed offering as well for the customers that definitely want it, kind of managed for them. So this is in turn, we were kind of talking about the problems at the beginning. These are kind of the business values and the solutions. We can go ahead and increase that response time up to 85%. We can go ahead and improve that operational efficiency, and we can reduce that overall compliance costs as well. Now, one thing that I did want to kind of mention that we actually offer for no cost is identity security risk reviews. And I think this is really cool. And I'll show you a sample kind of one page of what this looks like. But what we actually do is if they're an existing customer, we can go ahead and actually deploy out our sensors and be able to go ahead and collect data for about a week. And then we'll go back and actually show them, some of the issues that we found, whether it be stale accounts, whether it be misconfigurations, whether it be overprivileged accounts. You get the idea. You typically see an average deal cycle close 28 days, from start to finish with these active directory or identity security risk reviews, because people see this and they're like, well, what else can identity threat detection and response do for me? And they don't want it to go away, so they usually will go ahead and add it to their portfolio. Now, from an architectural perspective, this is kind of how everything looks from a posture management and detection perspective. You have the Falcon sensor on your on-prem data centers. You also have the ability to look at Microsoft Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, and Okta, via API. And we can go ahead and have this endpoint telemetry all feed back to our cloud. Same thing with these Active Directory services to be able to go ahead and have all that information in one separate spot. And then we, of course, have our response actions as well. So again, you can see blue is identity response actions. Red is first and third party responses. So we have the ability to do a lot with our XDR and XGen SIEM offering from the endpoint perspective. But from identity, we can go ahead and change policies, revoke sessions, disable accounts. And on the Active Directory side, we have the ability to enforce MFA, block access, and audit and alert as well. And these are just a number of various MFA items that we have that we actually support. I know we support even more because we've actually added OIDC as a connector option too. And we're working on PIV-CAC support as well for any customers on the phone that may overlap in the federal sector that might be interested in phishing resistant MFA. Now, I'll pause my screen right here and bring up that identity-based piece here. So I know this is really big. Let me zoom it out, but this is kind of a one pager that we can definitely provide the link for you as well. But it gives you a lot of the same data points that we were talking about. And it kind of explains what our identity threat risk review is actually, or identity security risk review is actually indicative of, and what you actually have to do to go do it. So again, if you're a current CrowdStrike customer, like all you need to do is talk to your RSM and they'll be able to turn it on and be able to help you with that. But if this is someone that isn't leveraging CrowdStrike today, it's pretty easy. There's a couple of sensors that need to get deployed, and you can start collecting this information, and you can go ahead and be able to see any potential issues with credential dumping, MFA bypass, over privileged accounts, compromised credentials, so on and so forth. So I would definitely urge anyone that is talking to their customers to leverage this for sure. But I just wanted to say thank you, and that's pretty much everything we had for today. So if there are any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I'll definitely be able to field them for you.
All right. Well, it does look like we have a couple questions. So for the first one, is there an immediate value that IDP brings when implementing it?
Yeah, great question. So identity prevention definitely brings that immediate value of getting visibility on identity-based risk attacks and auditing around stale accounts, overprivileged accounts, and any type of compromised credentials. Okay, as we talked about, these are all issues that a lot of people probably have in their environment that they're unaware of, and this attack path isn't going away. Adversaries know it exists. They know it's a very easy way for them to land and then start laterally moving and causing impact. So this is why we need to make sure that we're talking about it with our customers and ensuring that they're doing something about it. Great question.
All right, we got another one that came in. What is the goal of an identity security risk review?
Oh yeah. So as I was kind of talking about it earlier, the goal of this is really focusing around helping customers better understand these identity-based attacks and how they can actually kind of stop or mitigate them. The identity security risk review is really focused around being able to help them understand that, because I'd say most of our field team, when they go and run these, it's not like they're not worried about if they find something. It's like, okay, what do they find? What are they talking about? It's usually, a culmination of stale accounts, compromised credentials, service accounts that can interactively log in and have, overprivileged usage that can just kind of run free in an Active Directory environment. So that's really the value prop of an identity security risk review.
All right, awesome. And it looks like we have one more question. How does IDP help with leaked or stolen credentials?
Yeah, no, great question. As I mentioned before, leaked or stolen credentials are going away, and this is where identity prevention can actually pick up on these leaked credentials from having been pwned. You can also feed your own data into it. So if you subscribe to another data feed, you can actually feed that information in as well. And with one simple rule, you can actually set it up for blocking of access, so someone can't log in with an account if we've discovered their password as compromised.
Great, perfect. Thank you, Peter. It looks like that's all the questions we have for right now. Again, if anyone has any other questions that come up, we do still have some time, so please don't be afraid to type them in the chat. Otherwise, if you think of something that comes up after this webinar, please don't hesitate to reach out to our team offline and we can chat more. And Caleb, I will go ahead and pass it over to you now.
Thanks, Blair. Appreciate that. And thanks for everyone for attending, especially Peter taking the time to outline all of this to us. Very beneficial. And we'll look for some of that additional collateral to follow. As a reminder to anyone on the call that's interested in finding out more information, please feel free to reach out to us at CrowdStrike@dlt.com. I know a lot of you already use that already for quote requests and things like that. We'll be more than happy to help you. Again, we have a few of these coming up throughout the year, so please share the invites with your team and continue to join these, as we have the next one coming up June 20th around cloud security. And we'll be following up with you. If you don't already have the invite, the team will be reaching out to you. And like always, please make sure to take the survey, as we want to understand and hear all feedback you'll have to provide so we can make these beneficial for everyone moving forward. Appreciate you guys attending again.